Hey everybody, alright, today we are going to be talking about the BuildPro line of Inserta table clamps from Strong Hand Tools. Now we have 5 main categories of clamps. We have Inserta Pliers, Inserta Clamps, T-post clamps, Inserta F-Clamps, and side push clamps. And there are a few accessories that work on these as well. Our goal is to explain each clamp and show the features, but also show you how you can use these clamps and integrate them into your workflow to become more efficient and work more effectively. Let's start with the Inserta Pliers. Okay, with our Inserta Pliers, these are locking plier clamps that have a 5/8 stud on the bottom so they can be used in any of these tables or fixtures. What's really nice about these is they come in 4 sizes, with the middle 2 sizes being the common sizes for the kits. The difference between the middle 2 size clamps is the body length. So as you can see, the clamping arms themselves are about the same, with this one being a little thicker, but the length of the body overall is a little bit longer. The difference between these two is clamping force. You get about 350 pounds of clamping force with this one and about 500 with this one. So in addition to these two, we have the small, which is great for tight quarters, smaller fixture blocks, if you don't have a lot of room on your table. And then we have this extended reach one, which has about 5 inches of reach to it. And this is great if you've got to reach over something, if you've got to reach into the middle of a fixture or middle of a part. These are great options. And what we like about these clamps is just how quick and efficient they are to use. So these are awesome clamps for repeated work. If you've got multiple setups where you need to just be changing parts, put in pieces, tack them, take them out, put in pieces, these are fantastic clamps, and I'm going to show you an example of how they would work. So let's say I've got 2 stops on my table. Here's a piece of material. Now, if I grab one of these clamps, I'm going to open it up, I'm going to drop it into a hole, I'm going to bring it down, and we've just got a 1 single time adjustment with this handle on the back. Once I get it to a point, I can lock it in place. This is strong, it is held down tight, not going to move. But when it's time to take this out and insert another, lift, slide your piece out, bring a new one in, lock it back down. That fast, no messing with handles, no tightening, no loosening, just open, take your part, and close. Very quick, very efficient to use, and they can also, of course, be used in a vertical application too. If you have a block or the side of your table, they can just be put in the side and used the exact same way. These are very handy and very useful, and of course, just like any other fixture clamp, they have a 360-degree arc of clamping. You can go all the way around and clamp anywhere on the table that you need to. And here's just an up-close look at them. We've got our post on the bottom, release lever right here, and then our adjustment. And what's nice about this adjustment screw in the back is once you've got it clamped down, if you need a little bit more clamping pressure, you have that ability to just turn it another quarter turn or so to increase that clamping pressure. All right, let's talk about the Inserta clamps now. These are probably the more common style clamps that you're used to seeing. And they're offered in 2 sizes, a 6.5 inch and an 8 inch. And what that refers to is the height of that clamping bar, that capacity. But in addition to the difference in height, there's also a difference in build. So this one is built a lot heavier than this one, being that it's larger. Another difference between these two is the reach of the clamping arm. As you can see on the 8 inch versus the 6.5, there's about 1 inch of additional reach on that arm. Now, in addition to the traditional screw clamp here with the sliding arm, it is also offered with a straight handle, so no T, no sliding, just a straight rubberized ergonomic handle that allows you to tighten down and get a lot of force on that very quickly. The third style of Inserta clamp ditches the screw altogether and replaces it with a ratcheting lever. This is pretty cool, and it's a very quick clamp to engage. Let me show you. So I'll simply drop the pad down on my workpiece, and I'll pull this yellow lever backwards. You hear that ratcheting, and that is extremely tight. This clamping force is very, very high, and it quickly is released with this black plastic button. Pull back, pull the button, comes forward, quickly released. Inserta clamps, again, can be used vertically, as you see here, or horizontally, either on the side of an alpha table, the side of a fixture block, anything like that. And they are very quick, very versatile clamps with a great deal of accessories. All right, next I want to talk about the T-post clamps because they are so universal, very, very, very flexible in terms of clamping options, and they're just cool clamps. They're just cool clamps. So there are two styles of these T-post clamps. The first one that we'll talk about is this one right here, and it is made up of two cylindrical components and a tilting screw clamping mechanism. This clamp can be used in many different positions, and it is very flexible depending on your needs. So with this clamp, you've got your three components, and you've also got this collar right on the bottom here, which I can slide up or down. And essentially what that collar controls is how far into the table that clamp goes. So in the same way that the Inserta clamps, that clamping arm slides up and down, in this case, the actual post of the clamp slides in or out of the table. Right now I've got it up high, and as you can see, I can just push it down and have a much lower position clamp. In addition to the vertical adjustment, there's also horizontal or lateral adjustment too, which makes these clamps very, very unique. If you see here, I can slide this in or out depending on where I need that clamping pad to fall. And with that, it enables me to do things that some of these other clamps can't do, like reach over a part and clamp down. And the coolest part about these round ones is I can just take this out, and all of a sudden, look, this is a side push clamp. I can drop it into the table. I can use a fixture block, put it right in one of the holes of the fixture block, and now it's like a traditional clamp with downward pressure. These are very flexible clamps. And I think another very cool feature of these clamps, and a way that one might not consider using them, is because of this tilt here, you can actually use these to apply forward or backward pressure on a part. Let me show you a use case for that lateral push that I think is really neat. So I'm going to grab a couple of stops. I've got a workpiece right here. Now, let's say this has got a little bend to it, or I need to keep it really tight to these stops. So I could use a lateral clamp. I could drop this in and use it. In this instance here, I'm going to be pushing down and outward. So what I'll do is I'll take my clamp, I'll drop it in, I'll lower it down, and I can actually bring this out. And so with that clamp pad right on the edge, right on the corner of this tube, now as I tighten, not only is this being pushed down, it's also being pushed away. And that does two things, because that could keep my part nice and tight to two surfaces at the same time with one single clamp. There is one other kind of T-post clamp. So maybe you don't need this pivoting, maybe you don't need this pivoting, you just need some adjustment up, down, and laterally. So that's when we have this style, which does still have the round post to fit in the table with that stop collar, but instead of a cylindrical post going laterally, it's just a square post. So what that means is there's no movement in either axis on this sliding lateral rod, and it just gives me the same ability. Bring it out, drop it down, clamp things nice and tight. So these are the T-post clamps, super universal clamps, great if you need to get a weird fixture or weird position, and excellent to have in the shop. All right, so now we come to the Inserta F-style clamps. These are very, very cool and have a very unique accessory to them. So these may just look like your standard Inserta clamps, but our difference on this clamping component is right down here at the pin. There's actually a groove machined in, and it comes with this accessory foot right here. Now this accessory foot has a 5/8 pin on the bottom, which indexes into a table, but in addition to that, it has two holes, two additional holes, and this one here has a detent ball in it that engages in this groove. So what that does is it lets me take these two pieces and without any tools at all, snap them together, and I have full range of motion without that falling off. So that lets me use this as a traditional F-clamp in off-table situations. As you can see, I've got a foot, I've got a screw, I can bring it right up and tighten it in, and that works just like a regular F-clamp However, now that we're talking about a table application for these, here's the very unique feature. I'm going to grab one of my regular Inserta clamps just to show you as an example of what this can do. With your traditional Inserta clamps, I have a fixed radius for where I can clamp in my work area, as demonstrated here. As I spin this clamp around, that is the radius of clamping that I can accomplish with this. I can't clamp closer, I can't clamp farther away. And if I happen to have a piece that I'm working that is offset or in between in a weird spot, I might not be able to reach it with this. But that is where these F-style clamps come in very handy. Because the pin on the base is offset from the actual post of the clamp, what that allows me to do is it gives me a near infinite clamping radius to work. So if I'm right here, I can clamp 360 degrees, but I have that compound motion that lets me clamp even right up against the base plate. Very, very, very universal and a extremely useful tool if you've ever had to clamp tough spots or pieces that are just out of reach of a traditional Inserta clamp. They're available in two sizes, the 6.5 inch and the 8 inch, and the base plate for each is sized respectively. Another really cool thing about these is they're not limited to just the Inserta clamps. I can use that base plate in conjunction with Inserta Pliers, for example, to accomplish that same additional range of motion. And I can use them with the T-post clamps as well for a near infinite clamping setup option. So these are the Inserta F-Clamp style table clamps. Very, very universal, very useful, and just cool. Okay, look at these two small little unsung heroes of your fixture table kit. These are side push clamps, and a lot of the fixture kits will come with this smaller one, which essentially looks like a table stop, but with a threaded clamping bar going right through it at a very slight downward angle. And if you notice that slight downward angle, the reason that's important is because as you're clamping up against a piece or a part, if you were just to have a perfectly horizontal bar, it would push, but it does nothing for the downward pressure. And as we all may know, when you push laterally against something, it may have the tendency to lift a little bit. So this downward angle essentially ensures that no lift will occur when using these side clamps. So again, this is the smaller size, and then this is the XL size. And one thing you'll notice with this XL size over the smaller one is that there's a pin on both ends. Because on this XL side push clamp, there are pins on both ends of the body, it gives me the flexibility to position it however I see fit based on my clamping needs. I can either have the clamping screw much closer to the table surface, or if I flip it over, it's a little higher off the table and accomplishes the same task, just giving you that flexibility. You'll also notice copper screw. This is designed to resist weld splatter. If you've ever gotten any weld splatter on the threads of a clamp or screw, you know how tough it is to deal with that, or how tough it can be to deal with that. So with this copper coating, we essentially eliminate that problem with having weld splatter stick and having to clean them off before you can use them again. All right, so I've gone over the main types of clamps here, but let's talk accessories, because the accessories make these clamps even more versatile. So I've got a few different accessory pads right here in my hands. I've got these right here. These are V pads, and these ones here are essentially for the table, as they've got a small 5/8 stud on the bottom. So if I've got a piece of pipe and I want to clamp it down, I want to set it on the table, I'm going to set it on these pads, and that's going to ensure it doesn't roll anywhere. But how am I going to clamp down to the top of it without worrying about my pad sliding off? Well, there's a few ways we can do that. And the first one is this magnetic V-pad. This magnetic V-pad has a cross pattern, a V-groove pattern in the top, two sizes. So there's a larger V and a smaller V, depending on the work that you're doing. In this instance, we'll use the larger V. And so since it's got the magnet on the back, it's actually compatible with any of the clamps that have a circular clamping pad on them. So watch, I've got my circular pad here, my magnetic V pad right on. So then I can take it, drop it in, align it, and I can clamp down, and that is centered on that V, not going to move and not going to slide off. These magnetic V's can also be used on the Inserta Pliers, same thing, sticks onto the pad with a magnet, and they can also be used on the T-post clamps, same thing, sticks on with a magnet. Very universal tool, very useful little accessory for any of your Inserta style clamps to enable you to safely and securely clamp to round or cylindrical projects, pieces of pipe, parts, anything like that. The other option for clamping to round or irregular shaped objects are these adjustable V pads. So these pads right here have two little feet that move, and so for flat surfaces you can use them on angle because it'll create that 90-degree corner. You can use them on pipe. Whatever irregular shape you can think of, these will clamp it, and they're held on with a little clip, a little retaining clip. So they do not come off, they're not magnetic until you want to remove them. And as you can see, when I drop this into the table and bring it down onto the workpiece, the little feet, little pads right there will adjust automatically to the curve, to the shape of what I'm working on, and I can clamp down. These are definitely a lot stronger and a lot more sturdy than these smaller pads, albeit a little bit less universal. So these are the two sizes of the V-pad. As you can see, the smaller one and the larger one. Another neat accessory are these extension posts. They can be used, of course, as a table stop, but what if you need to bring your clamp up just a little higher? Now, this is typically relevant mostly on the pliers or the side pushing clamps, but it does work with any of the Inserta clamp line. Now you notice on this stop, in the top, there's a little hole. So if I drop this into my table, I grab a clamp, that clamp drops right into the top, and now I've got this additional height that I can use to clamp down material. So whether it's the pliers that you're using, a regular Inserta clamp, one of the side pushing clamps, the extension post increases your clamping capacity and clamping ability for any of those respective clamps. All right, so that was the full line of BuildPro Inserta clamp offerings, and thanks for watching. I hope this has given you some insight on how each clamp works and different ways you can use it in your own workflow. So grab some clamps, get to work, and enjoy your increased efficiency and workflow with the BuildPro Inserta clamp system.